Hi BookTube, Aaron here. Hope you're doing very well. Today I'm going to be doing a tag, and I've really fallen behind on many tag videos recently. I've been tagged in quite a few things. And by recently, I mean over the last 6 months or so. This is one I was tagged in, I think, about 2 months ago by a couple of different people. It's the BookTube Journey Tag, a tag created by Katie from Books and Things, and it was an adaptation, I suppose, of the what was initially the Shakespeare Journey Tag, which was created by Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading, Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and Nicole from A Day of Small Things, and it was a Shakespeare related tag about your relationship to Shakespeare. That was then adapted into the Victober Journey Tag, which was about your relationship to Victorian literature, and now it's the BookTube Journey Tag, which is just generally about as a creator what your relationship is to this weird thing called BookTube. Weird and lovely. Um, I was tagged by, I believe, two people. I was tagged by David from David Novak Reads Poetry, and Charles Heathcote as well. So apologies to both of you about taking so long to get around to it. And I had to sort of go through a kind of backlog of notifications to find this and work out who tagged me. So if I miss someone, and if you also tag me and you're watching this, then let me know so I can pop it in the comments and people can see your version as well. So I'll jump in because there's a lot to talk about, a lot of prompts, and a lot of them will probably get quite rambly. The first prompt is, how long have you been watching BookTube? I've been watching BookTube for about 7, maybe 8 years, but not consistently. So I can actually very clearly remember the first BookTube video I ever watched, and it was because me and my sister, I think, had been talking about blackout poetry, where you take a text and you black out certain words so that the words that are left are what make up the poem. And around the same time we were having this conversation, my sister had seen a video from Ariel Bissett about blackout poetry, so she sent it over to me, and that's how I discovered Ariel's channel, and that was the first channel that was kind of a BookTube channel I'd ever come across. I kind of treated it more like a general kind of vlog and lifestyle channel, which I think is more of the direction that Ariel's kind of taking the channel, but there's always been a very heavy book proponents, sort of a very bookish element to the channel, and that was probably the first place I ever heard the term BookTube. It wasn't some time. It was some time really after that I kind of got into BookTube and watching a variety of channels, but maybe we'll get into that in a bit. And then the second question is, how long have you been making BookTube videos? And I've been making them for 3 years now, which it's gone very quickly, so it's quite crazy to think of that. Then question 3 is, what made you start making videos? But also question 4, I think I'll link them together. So question 4 is, are there any people who played a significant role in your BookTube journey? And so I'm going to lump these together. I'll sort of talk about how I started regularly watching BookTube, how I started making videos, and some of the early channels I found, and some of the channels who have made an impact on me. And so I mentioned before Ariel Bissett and finding her videos, and then I didn't really watch that much more really. I recently watched what actually reminded me to make this video was watching Shelley Swearingen, and she was talking about John and Hank Green and the Vlog Brothers stuff that they used to do. And I also watched a lot of those videos as well. And so every now and then there was a heavy book sort of element to those videos as well. But apart from Ariel and the Green Brothers, that was about it until around the time of COVID. And I suppose I was kind of looking for bookish conversations since I was stuck in the house, and couldn't have too many bookish conversations. I'd never really thought of how you could do that online. Which I'm not really naturally orientated to an online kind of world. I'm very analog, really, in the way I think. So I have to, it takes me a while to work out um, really simple things. But then I started finding videos about books. I started watching. Is it W.C. Waldron or Robin Waldron? He was making videos about his bookish journey. About well, back when I was watching him, it was more about being a Renaissance man, and then he discovered the existentialists, and it was a big existentialist thing going on. And as I started watching his videos, to be honest, it didn't take long for them to start feeling very repetitive. Around the same time, I was getting into reading Borges, and I just searched Borges and was looking down YouTube and discovered Cliff from Better Than Food book reviews. So I started watching his channel as well, and he was talking about lots of books I'd never even heard of. And then because of R.C. Waldron, I'd heard that he'd started writing books, and I saw someone making a review of his first book. Can't remember what it was called. It was scathing, and it was a review by Kieran from KD Books, and I think he was like the first booktuber that I found who wasn't a really big, booktuber at the time. It was relatively small, and a few hundred people would watch each video, and compared to some of the bigger channels that I made, that it seemed really different, but it seemed really down to earth and really real. And so I started watching Kieran's videos a lot. And then I really don't know how it happened. It must have been through tag videos, maybe, that I started finding other channels. And I'm trying to fill in the blanks somehow, but I don't really know how. But I think I somehow ended up finding a tag video. I think it was like the favorite authors tag video. And through that, there are different people answering. And I can particularly remember there being a kind of conversation in this tag video between Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse and Brian from Bookish. And so I found both of their channels, and so I started watching them regularly. At around that time, Brian shouted out some channels that I went and checked out. One of those was Anna Wallace Johnson. Around the time she first started her channel, I think I can remember watching videos from her when she had maybe even less than 100 subscribers, which is kind of weird to think about now. And then it just grew out from there, and I discovered, I found out that Jason's wife also made videos, and I found Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. I found Sterling, not Sterling, now it's Sterling Reads Summer from Sterling Reads. Back then, the channel was Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, which just stuck in my mind. It seemed like such a creative booktube name, and so I thought, who is this person with this great this great name for their channel? So I went and found Summer's videos. And then it wasn't until, this has been really rambly, I'm sorry, but I think it wasn't until I found Matthew from Maybury Book Club. And again, I think it was through tag videos, and it was sort of him giving his answers to maybe the favourite authors tag or something like that, where I realised this is something that I could very easily do. Matthew just sets up his phone, turns it on, and starts talking. And um, I'd always felt like I needed to do something else to be more prepared, know how to edit videos. I needed to be more charismatic than I am naturally. I'm quite a shy, quite a quiet person, quite quite an awkward person, and so it was really watching his videos that sort of gave me the confidence to feel like I could actually do it myself as well. And then it's gone on from there. Made some great BookTube sort of friendships. I've been part of buddy reads. There was a period when I had a poetry book club with David Wiley, and I've done some wonderful buddy reads with David as well. And it goes on and on and on. There are lots of great channels who have been really encouraging. There have been people from BookTube who have sent me ebooks. Steve Donahue sent me a massive pile of ebooks, as has Sean D. Standfast as well. He sent me, I think, pretty much the whole bibliography of Clifford D. Simak. So I've got all of Simak on my Kindle, and from Steve, I've got loads of sort of Greek and Roman classics and history books about the ancient world, and stuff like that. And so, yeah, there are so many booktubers that I'm very grateful to for what we've read together, and just how they've been around and been supportive and friendly. So I'll leave it there and not go on a massive rant about everyone I've done anything with on BookTube. Maybe there'll be other sort of chances to go into that. Prompt number 5 then is what kind of books do you like to read? To give you a rough idea, I'll just go through what I'm currently reading at the moment. I've got them on the floor, so I've just got to dip in and get them. So a couple I've just started today. There's a field guide to Getting Lost by Rebecca Solnit, sort of memoir sort of stuff, and it's the kind of approach I enjoy in fiction or non-fiction, where there's a general topic and they're just exploring around the topic, it feels. And so with this, it's about being lost, losing things, losing yourself, but kind of finding yourself, and all kind of topics and people come up. I'm only 25 pages in, and all kinds of situations have been mentioned, whether personal or through things she's read, conversations she's had, and it's something I really enjoy. I enjoy it in fiction as well, particularly writers like W.G. Sebald, but this kind of exploratory writing that sort of floats around and it sort of goes into all kinds of directions, and then suddenly somehow it all kind of links together. I find it really satisfying, and I love it in Rebecca Solnit. I've been listening to some essays as well by Montaigne, and Montaigne is a bit like that as well. I love poetry as well. I'm just about to pick up The Arctic by Don Patterson, his most recent collection. I also like some more classic poetry. I'm also currently working my way through the complete poems of Emily Dickinson. I'm also currently reading Dancing in the Dark, which is the fourth book in Karl Uwe Knausgaard's My Struggle series or cycle or whatever you want to call it. And I also love classic novels, classic plays. Quite enjoy Renaissance, sort of early modern drama, I suppose. Shakespeare and his contemporaries I really enjoy, although I don't read them as much as I'd like to. And all sorts of stuff. Kafka and Rilke and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky are very much touchstones for me at the moment. And then Number 6, I seem to have messed up the numbering somehow. I hope I haven't missed a prompt. But the next prompt is, what kind of videos do you most like to make? I kind of like any video where it's just an excuse to turn on the camera and talk about books in any kind of way, whether it's books I want to read or books I've read. And so tag videos like this can be a great way to, the prompts can be a great way to get you to talk about a book that's familiar or unfamiliar, but it can often get you to talk about a book in a way you wouldn't have otherwise. So I really enjoy that about tag videos, and that's sort of the main thing that keeps me coming back to them, other than also the community aspect and being tagged by other people, and then sort of having the invite sort of open to other people afterwards. And so that's one thing. But my staple, the videos where if I could do nothing else on the channel, would be reading updates, sort of end of month wrap ups, because when I started the channel, that really was just what I wanted to do. I just wanted to have a a log of what I've been reading, and just to share my thoughts, whatever they may be. Not terribly profound, but just to make this very solitary activity a little more communal, I suppose. And so anything that gets me to talk about books, whether it's a wrap up or a library tour or a tag video or a Poetry Thursday video or anything like that, is really the kind of video that I love making, and I do my best to keep it as simple as possible. Next up then is, how has that changed? How's your approach to videos changed since you started on BookTube? Do you think your video making style has changed over time? It probably has, although I think it's taken me a long time to get to the kind of videos I initially wanted to make. And so for a long time I was editing videos, not often not in a very noticeable way, but I'd make mistakes, and I'd just try certain sections again, and so I'd have to sort of cut it together to make it work. Or often in a tag video, I'd sort of have the questions sort of pop up on the screen and things like that. Or if it's a Poetry Thursday video, I'd have the text of the poem come up as well. And essentially, as time went on, I just wanted to cut out as much as I could that stopped me from making videos, or anything that would slow me down from making videos. And so I got as close as I could to just turning on the camera and talking. I still edit them now. I've got a little video editor on my phone, but I don't sort of chop up and splice or anything like that. I just chop off a little bit at the beginning, so I leave a bit of silence before I start talking, and a little bit at the end, so you don't see my hand, sort of covering up the camera as I'm pressing stop. And I also boost the volume, because as you can tell, I speak quite quietly. So luckily, through this editor, I've been able to boost the volume. But that's pretty much all I do, and I try to keep it as simple, and try to remove as many barriers to making the videos as possible, because I prefer to just make them, and for the whatever quality there is in the video, for it just to be in the conversation and in what I'm saying, rather than in any editing or any sort of post-production or anything like that. The next prompt is, do you script or edit your videos? We've already kind of gone over this. I don't. I often leave prompts for myself, but whenever I try and script something, even going back to school, I always lose my place and make a fool of myself. So sometimes I leave prompts, but yeah, I don't really do that much, really. Then the next is, what's the most viewed video on your channel? To date, it's a video I made called "Is Proust Worth It?" A video about In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, and I just finished the whole thing, and I'd made videos as I went through, sharing my thoughts about the work as a whole. And then once I got to the end of it, I kind of felt like it's a really big book, and it's a question that a lot of people are going to be asking themselves when they're starting In Search of Lost Time. And so I thought I'd make a video addressing that and just giving a summary of my experience. And it seems like a lot of people have been going to it. I suppose it is quite a common question for people who are considering Proust. And I think so far it's had 2.4 thousand views, which for me is a lot. I don't often have that many people watching, at least compared to that. And normally have, I don't know, 100, 200, something like that. I'm not too sure. Next up, we've got, what's your favourite video you've ever made? I don't really know. Quite often when I'm really proud of a video, that's nearly always when the video doesn't go very well. There are two videos that I made where I can remember really enjoying making them, and I wasn't in front of the camera. There's one video where I went through the books on my Kindle, and I had the camera facing the desk, and I had the Kindle down on the desk, and I was just flicking through and talking about what was on there. And it was a really simple idea for a video. It was sort of kicking off a bookshelf tour, so I started virtually, and I really enjoyed that. So that's one I really enjoyed. And a similar one was when I went through the poetry shelf. So it would have been the next video in the tour, where it was because there are so many poetry books on the shelves behind me. It was a kind of snatch and grab thing. And again, I was behind the camera and just taking books off that sort of stood out and I wanted to talk about. As there are two relatively recent ones from earlier this year that I really enjoyed making. The next one, I think number 11 or 12, I've sort of messed up the numbering here. Do you have a favourite book you've read because of BookTube? Again, I've just got to pick it up off the floor. This is one, I might have got to it without BookTube, but BookTube really pushed me into reading it, I suppose. And I'm very glad that there are plenty of other books I read because of BookTube. But this is The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, and I really can't remember the first place I heard of it. I can remember reading about Sylvia Plath, reading it when I was reading Red Comet by Heather Clark, and the impact the book had on her. But also when in the first few months I started watching BookTube, I could hear people talking about it. It was sort of coming up in videos. I can remember Matthew from Neighbourhood Book Club talking about it and bringing it up, and some other people, whether in comments or things like that. It just sort of kept popping up, and I was really intrigued by it. So I read it about this time 2 years ago, I think, and then last October I buddy read it with Anne from 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 Anna Novella. Sorry, Dia. Dia is also a great booktuber as well. So I'll make sure she's mentioned as well. But I buddy read this with Anne from Anne Novella, and it was during that reread with Anne that it made me realise it's one of my favourite books of all time, and I might not have found it if it wasn't for BookTube. So I was very glad that BookTube pushed me in that direction. Number 13 is, do you have a favourite BookTube experience to tell us about? There are lots of, it's got quite hard to choose. I was thinking of just one moment that I had earlier this year where I was part of a group read. We were reading War and Peace together, and then many of us from that group went on to read Les Miserables together. and it was when we were reading War and Peace quite early in the group read. And I was walking home from work. I had my headphones on, and I was catching up on the voice messages that had come in over the last few days, listening to people's thoughts on War and Peace. And um, it just sort of struck me just in a moment just how great it was that I was able to do this, and I was talking about a book I love with such a wonderful group of people. And there've been so many other similar experiences as well, whether in groups or in buddy reads. Um, but it just struck me in that moment in January that it's a really special thing that we're able to do, whether it's talking through videos and in the comments, or whether we're doing a buddy read and we're sending messages and voice messages to each other, or part of a larger group, or it's on a Discord server. Um, just this engagement and this conversation that we're able to have is really great. So that was a really, at least for me, a very special moment. The next prompt then is, what does your book collection look like? And it looks very much like this. Books on shelves. I've got this bookcase here, and this is mainly most of my poetry, most of my non-fiction, and a good deal of a lot of my favourite fiction and sort of classic fiction that, there might be some of my wife's books in here, but we went for more of a sort of classic feel for the books that are in here. So a lot of my sort of wife's classic books are in here with a lot of my books. And then downstairs, it's you may have seen in other videos, certainly some of my older videos. We've got an IKEA Kallax shelf, sort of dividing up our living room, so we can zone it into a sort of living space and a dining space. So we've got books on each side of that mostly, and that's, there are some fantasy books there. There are some, what else is there? There's more contemporary books there, kids books, middle grade books, coffee table books, and then I've got another smaller bookshelf which has got loads of kids books on it. It's got lots of mystery books on it, and then it's also got a shelf of mainly ancient works, classical authors, epic poems, folklore, as well as a few other everyman's library books that just sort of fitted on the shelf. So that's a sort of a verbal picture. For the aesthetic, it's pretty much very much like what you see behind me, books on shelves with the occasional knick-knack. Then number 15 or 16 or 14, I've lost count. What advice would you give to someone starting a BookTube channel? The thing that people always say is be yourself, I suppose, which is said a lot. But I think when you stop and think about it, is maybe one of the most important things that you could say to someone in this kind of situation. And it's the thing that I've had to keep saying to myself, is to just be myself on camera, make the kind of videos that I want to make, and don't rush it. Just keep making the videos. It's going to be probably, unless you're incredibly extroverted and really charismatic, it's probably going to be a little awkward to begin with, but just keep going, and keep finding new channels. Keep try to go out there and say hi to other people in the comments, and just be friendly and engage with them, where they are. And eventually I think people will see your name, and you'll start engaging, and that's also really the most important thing, at least for me. I'm terrible at commenting on videos, but having some kind of engagement with other people, whether it's watching a live video and commenting, or at least I find watching the live videos, even if you're not commenting that much, is just a great way of feeling like you're part of the community as well. Um, so that's I don't know. It's helpful for me to have that in the back of my head, the community aspect, and to not think too much about this as a channel and a project that I have to do really well in, and I have to get so many views or anything, or it has to look a certain way. And I just turn on my phone and start talking, and I don't have very catchy thumbnails or anything. For a while, I was making thumbnails, and then again, it was just one of the things that was taking time, and I decided just to stop doing it. So I normally just pick my favorite sort of auto-generated one from YouTube. If all of them are really awkward and I don't like them, I go back to the video and I just take a screenshot, and that's it. That's all I do. So just remove any obstacle that gets in the way. If you don't want to um, edit too much, if you don't want it to be showy, don't make it showy. Just talk about what you love and what you enjoy, and people will respond to that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say really. It took me a while to find a space that was sort of comfortable for making videos in as well. Only really in the last year or so have I felt like I'm kind of comfortable about making videos. It took a good couple of years for me to get into a good rhythm, find a backdrop that actually worked, stuff like that. So yeah, just trying to find a decent backdrop, I suppose. Whether it's, if you have bookshelves, it's nice to have them in the background, but a nice wall will do. And just turn on camera, start talking. I'm really rambling now. So all that's left is to tag people, and loads of people have done this. I'm really, really behind. But what I'll do is I'll do my best to remember every person that I have mentioned, and I'll try to make sure I sort of tag the people that I've mentioned. And so if you haven't done it yet, and I've mentioned you, or if I haven't mentioned you and you're watching this and you haven't given it a go, then please consider yourself tagged as well, and give it a go. So there we go. That's the BookTube Journey Tag. A really long, rambly video, I'm sure, but I enjoyed it. I kind of have a bit of a nostalgia now for the first couple of months that I started watching videos, and when I started finding some of these, um, at the time, smaller channels, and some of them have grown a lot since, which is really good. But yeah, it's the more I think about it, the more excited I get. So I'll leave it there before I make a fool of myself if I haven't already. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.